It's true that voice happens.
I always just thought you did that live.
Yeah, and I don't even have to open my mouth, and the voice just happens. It's amazing. Welcome, Wastelanders, Vault Dwellers.
Hello.
Welcome back. Hello, this is the Fallout Lorecast. I'm your host, Tom or Robots, and that other voice is not Lainey. No. This is not Lainey. This is Ellen. This is somebody else. And if you have listened to Roll to Cast, then you might recognize the voice because we're switching it up today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
How's
We're
it
doing
going?
a crossover. It's fun. It's flirty. It's cool. It's cash.
Hey. Yeah.
Yes, I am Ellen from Roll to Cast, which is a production by Baby Beard Media, which is 4 Australian performers getting around a podcast table and making some top tier TTRPG content.
Yes.
Where we use our performing skills, and we like to keep it cool and cash and give some variety. So each season is a different game, and thus I am having to read so many different game systems, and I really feel like I'm back in high school in the best way.
in the best way, not in the oh my god, I'm back in high school, am I going to be able to sit with my friends at the lunch table, or are those people over there going to make fun of me, and oh my god, is that person looking at me?
I just got shoved into a locker. This is the worst. If someone looks at me, I'm just going to die.
Oh my god. Oh my Jennifer just stole my fries again. Jennifer.
What a bitch.
I hate Jennifer. I can't believe Jennifer's parents bought her that car for her birthday. No joke.
I always feel like American teens and Australian teens are entirely different breeds.
Entirely different. So wait, okay, so side quest. Speaking about role-playing games, side quest here, side story. When I was in high school, there was a girl in one of my classes whose parents bought her a car for her 16th birthday. And she came to school. But here's the story. She came to school that day totally pissed off. And we were like, I'm just going to call her Candace. And we were like, Candace, why are you upset? And she was like, you wouldn't understand. And we're like, what? You just got a car for your birthday? And she's like, yeah, but well, it's the wrong color. And we were just
oh my God.
What is wrong with you? we were like,
paint shops do exist.
We're just like, you've got to be. Anyway, welcome to the show. Why? So you are here today because.
Remember when we were talking about TTRPGs?
Yeah, because.
Isn't that fun?
Because there is a Fallout tabletop role-playing game, and you
is indeed.
You have had experience at this. I have not had experience at this yet, but you have.
Yes.
And so the wonderful minds behind multiple shows on the Robots Radio Network, your shows and my shows, came together, and I'm giving us both compliments because I guess I'm just complimenting us. So pat on our backs. Yay.
It's a free-for-all. Everyone gets a compliment today.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, you were like, hey, let's get there and talk. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So that's what we're doing.
Opinions.
That's what we're doing today. So here, tell you what, let's start off because I've talked about role-playing games on this show before. In fact, I think it was like a year and a half ago. I was like, I'm going to just make my own rules for kind of a Fallout roleplay system. And I did a few shows where I basically simplified a Dungeons and Dragons system because I wanted to be able to take my son, who was 9 or 10 at the time, and just kind of work him through a system. And I was like, hey, we could just make ourselves characters. I could be a super mutant or a robot or something like that. We could just use maybe a D20 dice system and just, make up a system where if you want to do a thing, we'll figure out how to roll the dice and make it work. And so I created a very simplified system, but the official TTRPG for Fallout is not that. It's not what I created. It's an official system. I've
seen many a mod, like there was a popular kind of Fallout mod that was never, I don't think it was officially published. And people have been using D&D as a kind of, look, I maintain that D&D is the furthest away from the actual genre than any other role-playing game, because most people find the fun and the frivolity in that D&D is so pliable in that you can really use it to adapt a lot of different systems. I think people really love the combat and how the game system actually works, whereas if I try and think of D&D in terms of like a really specific genre or what's the trappings of D&D, it's a lot more nebulous, right? Because I think a lot of people play it and the fun comes from the comedy of it all, of like not taking the genre seriously. And then you have really specific genre D&D campaigns like Curse of Strahd, which is obviously gothic and horror. And so it's just kind of like, what is D&D apart from a very baseline setting or like a game system that people just use for what ifs, which is why I get annoyed when people like, I don't accept these races in my game because they're made after the year 22 and that's bad and not part of the fine wine that is D&D. And it's like, D&D is fast food, and you admit it.
Yeah. Well, the pliability of Dungeons & Dragons is you have a D20, and you can use the D20 for general rules or general rolls for whatever. And then you have specific dice that you can use for specific things, like this weapon is a D8, or this ability is a D10, or 2 D4s, or whatever, right? And that's the general pliability of it is that, right? Whereas like a specific system, you guys have been playing Kids on Bikes, right? Is way more specific to the setting and the way that world works. And that's more focused. So when it comes to something like the Fallout tabletop role-playing game, where does that fit in on that scale of things? How does it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. So, how does it work?
The nitty-gritty. So I've been playing the Fallout role-playing game by Modiphius Entertainment for a stream with our good friends of the pod, Cyberpunk Uncensored. And it's interesting because it has a 2D20 system. So you're always trying to roll under. It's a roll under system. Okay. So the lower the rolls, generally the better. Sorry?
Okay. So what does that mean for people who have never played that kind of system before?
Yeah, so instead of all your lovely dice that you've spent a long time collecting, you only get to use 2 D20s.
That's it.
Well,
2 dice.
Yeah, that's the baseline. You can buy more dice if needed, but you have 2 D20s as a baseline. Then you are going off of your special score, which is
strength,
kind
perception,
of holdover from the game.
All of that stuff.
Strength, perception, all the other things that Endurance. Special stands for that I have not memorized.
Yeah. We got it.
I think it's strength, perception, endurance. The hell is C?
Charisma.
Intelligence. Ability. No.
Special.
No. And I do have it open in front of me, but it's much more fun to freestyle.
What is it? It's I can't find it.
I don't know.
Luck. Why can't I think of it all of a sudden? I can't think of it. Agility.
And
then luck. Yes.
Jinx, you owe me a quote.
Agility. Yep. All right.
Yeah. So you've got that, and then you've got skills that you can buy when you are creating your character. So generally you add a special stat and then that skill together. So for example, I'm trying to sneak. That's my perception plus my stealth skill. That comes to about 11 for me. So when I roll my 2 D20s, I'm hoping that either or both of them will roll under an 11.
Okay.
So that's the kind of core system. There are also additional things like you have action points, which you start out with a few in the game, and they can allow you to buy certain things. You can use action points to buy specific questions or answers from the GM. You can use action points to buy more dice for a roll. So you say, okay, I will need 3 successes to make this roll. Obviously, using the baseline of 2 D20s, that is impossible. I'm going to use my action points to buy 1 or 2 more D20s to kind of boost my odds a little bit at getting more successes.
So if you had to hack so let's say you're in you've busted into the bad guy's facility and you're trying to hack the computer mainframe, and it's a really tough system to hack.
Never.
Right. Yeah.
I respect the rules of hospitality.
Of course. So the enclave bunker is open. There's a computer mainframe that's there, and you need to hack it with 3 successes.
Mm-hmm.
So now you need to use at least one action point in order to get an extra roll to attempt to do that.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, it pushes for a more group play style because you have a pool of action points. The most you can have is 6, and you get them when you roll on your tag skills. If they get successes, then it's like, oh, you get some little action points. It's kind of like we talked about Kids on Bikes, which we're playing at the moment. I say that we have long stopped playing that, but the episodes are releasing. We do them all in bulk.
Right, you guys do them in bulk and then you release them over time. Right.
Yeah. It gives us a chance to edit it, and it's almost like we talk about Lorecast as almost like a TV show, in that there is an epic pre-production time where we are trying to learn the game systems, creating our characters, getting our composer on board, giving them time to kind of start producing some tracks or get the mood and tone of the game. Then we are often liaising with the game companies because we want their support, and vice versa. We can be great marketing material for them.
Sure.
And then we go into the actual recording time, which is usually like 3 days of like 10 to 6 role playing, plus more if we don't finish it in time. And then the post-production, which is like the longest part, where we are editing, we're getting our music done, we're splicing that in, we're finding effects. It's a whole ass thing. Yeah. And so people will ask you questions about like, what was this about? And it's like, mate, that was 4 months ago.
Right. Yeah. It was a while ago. This is a whole thing.
Also, any comments of like, why don't you do this next? It's like, because that was 4 months ago.
Okay, so
bless.
there's a tag
my
system.
point was in Kids on Bikes you get you get a little a bonus token, adversity token is what they're called, or adversity points in Kids on Bikes. But that is for when you fail rolls. When you fail rolls, you get a little token that you can also then use to boost things. So they are using a similar thing with the action points, where big successes get rewarded, and you can figure out as a group how to kind of spend those action points accordingly.
Okay. So
that was my point. It took me like 20 minutes to get there.
Got it. So you got your action points you can spend on stuff. You've got your specials. When you build out your character, you can choose how many points to put into each special, just like you can when you're actually playing the video games, I would assume. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a character that's, more strong and kind of resilient, then you can put your points into strength and endurance. And you can be somebody who, runs in with a big old 2x4 and stop sign and hits people over the head with it, right? And can tank a little bit more damage probably. And so how does the hit points side of that work?
Well, it is funny because you're not given all that many points to start out with when you start the game. I can't remember exactly how much you get, but it is quite on the smaller scale. So at the moment, I have a ghoul who is she's much more on the brainy side, a scientist, obviously not very physically adept because ghouls have suffered many radiation damage and a lot of their muscles and skins have weathered away.
Right. So you can play as different character types then, so different like races.
You can.
Do they have default bonuses or reductions to certain stats?
They all have their own. Yeah. So if you're a ghoul or a super mutant, obviously you are immune to radiation and a lot of other poisons.
Okay, cool.
Then you've got a storytelling thing where a lot of people don't like ghouls and super mutants.
Right. So, it would be like playing a drow in D&D. Some people are going to be predisposed to not like you so much.
Yeah. Racism happens everywhere.
Wonderful. Yay.
Oops, all racism in role-playing games. But yeah, you can... The thing that Modiphius, I think, have tried to do with this game is really it is a game for fans of Fallout, which I know I had a bit of a tricky time because I had actually not played any Fallout games beforehand. I had seen a lot of people play them and people talk about them. And in the lead up, I actually listened to a lot of Fallout Lorecast because I was like, what the hell is happening? I don't understand.
Yeah.
But even the opening setting is... It really kind of just jumps straight into the character creation. And I'm like, whoa. I always like to know what genre I'm playing because that will affect what kind of character and what kind of archetypes I'm using to play the game.
Sure. Where
it really just jumps straight in there. And what they've tried to do is clearly make it so that everyone can play their kind of canon world states. There are story hooks later in there for... I haven't played it, but I know clearly they're alluding to Fallout 4 and
so
a lot
Boston
of other
area,
things. It's based,
synths,
and it's
those kinds of things.
It's not set in a specific place because it's kind of like you're fans of Fallout already, and we know that this game is so that you can basically, instead of making a D&D mod, you can play this instead, and you can set it wherever, and any kind of world states that you want to carry over from the game is correct. I think that not limits the game. It, by not being specific, I find that does pose a hamper to people who really want to get stuck into the actual TTRPG. I don't think it's a necessarily a bad thing to go, hey, look, if you've played the games, this might not necessarily be canon to you. But you've still got the it's trying to kind of like have its cake and eat it.
Cake and eat it. Yeah, absolutely. That's the expression that came to mind too. And I think that's difficult though, because so many people will say there's going to be a division there. Some people are going to go, only the game should be canon. And then other people are going to go, anything that comes out can be canon, whether it's a book or a role-playing game or whatever. Let's make it all canon, and then and people are going to go, well, if 98% of the community never plays the role-playing game, then why would it ever be canon? I get both sides of that because
totally.
Sure.
I'm not here to to poop on anyone's parade or.
I like pooping on parades. I don't know about you. A poop parade.
Well, you shouldn't. It's a hygienic nightmare.
That's terrible. That's a terrible idea. Who would go to see a poop parade?
Having a little poo parade. Sorry. But I'm kind of the opinion that games. It's a similar. I love D&D, but we've talked about doing it for Roll to Cast, and we all had similar hesitations because we like to play to the specifics of the genre that the game gives us, and each game generally is trying to tell us a story within its game system, within its setting, and within its rules, and we want to help tell that story. Yeah. The story that Fallout, the TTRPG, seems to be telling is we like Fallout and we want to keep enjoying it with our friends, which is not a bad story, but it is not really, it's hard to play that.
It doesn't
it's really
give you
just,
a specific direction. Yeah.
It's a big sandbox that you can play in and you can keep living in the world of Fallout because obviously throughout when Fallout first came out in the 90s? Yeah.
Very early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, it has gone through so many iterations.
Very late 90s, not early 90s. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My brain just went.
And no, that's all good. And despite the game developers not being around, those companies closing, Fallout has maintained to have a long life, a half-life, a cursed life. No, I'm kidding. It's
a double life. Wait, what?
Like a ghoul, it has weathered,
the radiation of the modern age. Oh, no.
Yes. And kind of, from I can't remember the company to now Bethesda, people just love Fallout. They love the iconography of it. They love the RPG setting. I think people like how Fallout, for me, usually has a very specific tone, which is equal parts bleak, mixed with bonkers absurdism.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's a wonderful mix. Well, hey, tell you what, I know we only have so much time for the show. I need to go to the middle of the show to thank our patrons. I also want to show you something really cool. I'm going to send it to you in our message on Twitter, so you can take a look at it as well. I'm going to put it up on screen as well, because there's something new I'm doing with Patreon. I want to get your thoughts on this. And then we're going to come back and I want to get a little bit more specifics about some of the combat stuff that you can do in the game. And I also have a fun little story to share about when I did my fun little play session with my in-laws, and I took them on a Fallout adventure, which was fun stuff to share. So we'll be right back.
It's a risky move, Tom.
It's a risky move. It's a risky move, and yeah, for more than one reason. But we'll talk about that in a second. We'll be right back.
Hello there, old chap. Good to see another of General Atomic's finest, still eager to serve.
So here we are in the middle of the show. Here, I'm going to send this over to you, and then I'm going to put this up on screen. Check this out. So for those of you watching on the live stream or also on the videos, this is some of our new merch that I set up. This is the first of the shirts that is currently set up to roll out to our patrons. So if you are currently one of our tier 4 or higher patrons, you will be getting t-shirts. So congratulations, and no extra cost. You will start to get t-shirts every 3 months for being at those tiers. If you are a tier 3 patron, then you will get the same design as a sticker. And this is the first one that's going to come out. It is a Brotherhood of Steel design. And I wish I could set this up. Actually, I probably can load up a picture. It'll take too long for me to find it right now. But the high definition version of this, you can actually see the really detailed work on that. And it's a Brotherhood of Steel design, but instead of it just being, say, like a black Brotherhood of Steel shape with the gears and the sword and the wings, that part of it is actually really, really detailed, weathered looking steel with like scuff marks and things like that, all within that work. And then the Fallout Lorecast logos within that. And it's this kind of minimalist look that works really well on a t-shirt. And that's going to be the first one. We're going to get a bunch of other logos and things from different factions and stuff in Fallout. Every 3 months, a new design will go up on the Patreon. And as long as you continue supporting as a patron, then you get the next design every time a new one goes up. These will only go out on Patreon. So only patrons will ever get these, and they will never go up on the regular Robots Radio store. So you can say, hey, I was a patron because I had this and nobody else did. And so that's to say thank you for your loyalty. So yeah.
Yay! It is a very cool shirt. I had to, my computer was loading so slowly, so I had to look it up on my phone. Classic Aussie internet, delivered by a kangaroo.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that looks like such an awesome shirt. The Brotherhood of Steel is very, like, the logo is very dope. I don't really care for the faction militaristic
has some
leanings.
Debatable leanings. And that's why we're going to do different factions every time. We're going to have all of the, eventually we'll work our way through all of the major factions, all the major different groups, and eventually we'll work into all sorts of different other things as well.
Who's wearing an Enclave shirt?
Oh, somebody's going to have it. But here's the Enclave shirt's cool because it has...
Sort yourselves out.
Because the Enclave one is going to have, the texture for it is a worn out and faded and kind of scuffed up looking American flag. So it's all like broken and battered underneath it, which is symbolic.
That's cool.
The Enclave. So
yes, it's like the loading screen for Fallout 2, where it's like, you know, I don't think it's an Enclave. I think it's a Brotherhood of Steel helmet that is just like graffitied and weather beaten and left to kind of rust. And you're like, ooh, that's some delicious storytelling.
Yeah, it's all symbolic and just kind of there in the environment, and it just tells so much just in that image. Yeah, so that's what I'm going for in this artwork, and I think it looks awesome. I spent some time working on each of those. I have the first 4 of those all designed already, and if you upgrade, then if you're not one of the tiers that's already set up for this, you can upgrade and you can get it. And if you aren't a patron, then you just go to patreon.com/Fallout Lorecast and you can sign up at one of those tiers.
If you aren't,
and you can go do it. Then what are you doing?
Hey!
And if you are already, then I need to say thank you to you, especially those of you who are tier 5 and higher, which includes our tier 6 patron, our Liberty Prime, This is Jared B. Thank you so much, Jared. Our Pie Man. He's a wonderful guy. He supports the show. So much support. Thank you, Pie Man. And then also Southern Rage and Stagger and Stumble support us as tier 5 patrons every week. They get called out. So thank you guys, and everyone else who supports the show. All 44 of you guys. Thank you so very much. I'm hoping you guys will love these. And again, thank you for your support, for your loyalty. And this is no extra cost to those of you who are currently at these tiers. This is just something bonus that you guys will get as just a thank you for your extra support.
Do you think your patrons, what kind of vaults would they be in?
What kind of vault would they be in? Oh, man.
I would say a dope one.
A dope one. One of the good ones.
Because they were planned by the American government for experimentation. I doubt it, but maybe this is a nice vault for fun times.
This is the vault that they got together and they built themselves without Vault Tech knowing.
The vault is the friends we made along the way.
This is the thing everybody's saying now. This is like I wonder how long this meme's gonna last.
Forever. Until friendship dies.
Oh God. Oh no. That's the next very tragic storyline. And with that, let's get on with the rest of the show.
If you have any questions about Nuka World, I'd be delighted to answer them.
It's time for Fallout Australia. Well, that's a good idea.
I don't think, Australia is an interesting one in terms of post-apocalyptic lore because we are quite often left out, or it is just like, it exploded, or it's too hot to live there.
Or it's just Mad Max.
Or it's Mad Max, which makes sense because a lot of it was filmed here. So
yeah.
And you know, if you've driven from Adelaide to Darwin, you're not far off. You got to make sure you got some spiky jackets because out there be monsters, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it is. You are like one of the largest land masses on the planet, and yet still so empty of stuff.
Well, yeah, the middle is very hot and arid and
empty.
But that's not, you know, and also not to get all anti-colonial up in this space, but I'm sure there was a free movement and people living there before wide-scale slaughter and genocide by white peoples.
Yeah, good job, white people.
Oops.
All right, well, on to happier conversation points. Let's talk about
Fallout.
Let's talk about conflict and battle in Fallout. Which
nice segue.
It's kind of the same thing.
It's fun because it's not real.
Okay, so in this system, I'm sure that they have probably laid out some basic enemy types, right? You probably have everything from like rad roaches to like ghouls, right?
Yeah, feral ghouls
to like super mutants with machine guns, kind of all the standard stuff.
And you can't forget good old, raiders and cultists and libertarians out there.
Oh, those libertarians. Yep.
Can't forget them.
They're armed to the teeth. So
just as dangerous.
So how does combat go? Is there like a initiative kind of thing going on? And do you have like weapons with damage? How does that work?
Yeah, you have weapons with damage. You have an armor kind of rating. Which will, similar to Cyberpunk, it will ablate damage.
Okay.
But get progressively more and more damaged the more you continue to use it.
Oh, okay. So you can actually wear it out and then.
Yeah.
It's no longer useful.
Most, I think you have opposed tests, and so it's kind of like whoever is opposing will roll first. I don't think we have encountered any initiative order at this certain stage. I know there is one, and it is set by a specific stat. But I cannot for the life of me remember it. A lot of it is, looting, surviving. Combat will not always be scarce, but it's kind of it's pretty manageable. And adding to that, you have the group role. So someone in your group can kind of lead an action, and everyone else just rolls 1d20 and sees if it's a success, then they boost and they are all supporting the kind of team leader. And so I think we've used that for a lot of kind of big moments. You know, we have a super mutant who's really obviously the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so in things like that, we are quite often using a group role, because it's like, okay, we're all banded together. We've all got our specific stats, and we need you to protect us, please.
Right. You go up in front, and then we'll all get behind you, and you do your thing, and we'll just cross our fingers. All right, we're good.
Yeah, I am such the worst person to ask, because I'm always so scatterbrained when it comes to game systems. But yes, there is an initiative order, but if you ask me,
is it based on agility or something like that? Probably.
Yeah, something.
Okay, something like that. Okay. Now, when it comes to going back to the characters, what are the different kinds of races that you can be? Human, ghoul, super mutant?
Yeah. Super mutant, you can be the synths.
A synth, okay. Can you be a robot?
Yeah.
Okay. You can be a robot.
And then you've got your vault dwellers, your stock standard humans, and all of them have their own little bonuses and perks. And I really wanted to play a ghoul, because I've always found them very interesting in the Fallout world. And I know that Fallout New Vegas really delves into what is it like to be indefinitely immortal, and you have really cool ghoul NPCs that have lived kind of multiple lifetimes over and have to keep reinventing themselves. So I thought that was really cool, and obviously that's a thing you can't do in the video game. You can't play as a ghoul,
right?
To my knowledge,
no.
And you can't play as a super mutant. You can meet some really cool NPCs. But this gives you that option to really explore the world of Fallout. So you've got super mutants, you've got ghouls, you've got vault dwellers, you've got synths and robots. Mm-hmm. And they all have kind of different bonuses according to their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, in Fallout 4, the synths don't necessarily know that they're synths. They think they're human. So that's a fun story bit you could play into that, is the idea that like your character doesn't necessarily know that they're a synth.
We kind of do that as well with our super mutant in our Cyberpunk Uncensored stream. Rob plays a super mutant called Wally, who very much believes he's human, and so we have to just keep talking around it. I'll be like, we can't go into this shelter. It's they're not going to look too kindly on non-humans. And Walter will be like, but I am a human.
But I am human. Sure. Yes, you are human, but they but you're so strong that they will be intimidated by your strength. Oh, that's right. I am very strong human. Yes, you're a very strong human. That is pretty much my whole MO during our game. It's like, yes, I know, but they're just scared of you. That's what. Right. Well, that's fun, because I think anybody who has enough experience playing the Fallout games can dream up some very interesting situations to put their party through. You know, if they're the GM of this. Some background story. We were getting together with my wife's parents and my son. Yes, your in-laws. Right, my son. That the system that I had designed that I mentioned before. I basically built a little bit of a system based on some D&D principles that are kind of, streamlined. And I'd played it with my son and my wife before, and ended up playing with my son and one of his friends, and we had a lot of fun doing that at one point. But my wife's parents were over, and they're extremely conservative. They were the kind of people that we had to explain that, like, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I did a Dungeons and Dragons podcast and that kind of thing, and that it's not about worshiping devils, and no, this is an okay thing. Right. Yeah, right. But like, no, this is an okay thing. It's good. There's nothing bad about it. Like, we had to explain this to them. But so I thought it would be like, it's not a bad idea to take them through a role-playing game to let them understand what this is kind of like. So we had them create their characters. We took them through this adventure. They ended up like being part of this community called Unity, where they could pick the different kinds of characters they were. And, you know, somebody was a super mutant. Somebody was my son always wants to be a robot. He's like a Mr. Handy who floats around. He's got a little buzzsaw. Cute. Yeah, he's got a buzzsaw and a torch. My wife always wants to be the super mutant, and her name's, what does she call herself? I don't remember, but she just wants to smash things. Bless you. And anyway, we took them on an adventure. The kids got lost somewhere. They end up over at a place that's kind of like Nuka World. It's like this old rundown theme park. And
yes,
turns out that somebody had abducted the kids. It turns out it was like a robot that went haywire. So they smashed the robots. They're able to free the kids and bring the kids back. So it's this nice wholesome story about them finding some kids who were in trouble because the robots took them, and they bring the kids back. So it turned into this like nice wholesome thing. But, you know, it was based on the Fallout world, and it was this wonderful like family nice thing that we were able to bring everybody into. So it worked out really well. And that's,
so what you're saying is the Fallout is the friends we made along the way.
It's the friends you made along the way. And I'm sure you understand this too from the perspective of an entertainer, but also somebody who understands how games can bring people together. Even when you have ideological differences, even among your family, the ability to use something like this to bridge that gap, and to use role playing as a way to kind of like connect. And even something like Fallout, which can be, like we said, dark or even ridiculous, can be used in a way that can bring people together. And I think that's just kind of a fun thing to think about.
I totally agree. You know, that we talked a little bit about what it's like in as a performer and in the arts, and it really does feel like a team sport where you're all kind of working together to build something. And I'm a big proponent of those skills should be utilized in more places, and introducing kids to that, particularly with the use of fantasy role-playing games, has been really beneficial. And I think there's a big push for that now of having a D&D kind of activity in a lot of after school or intra-school curriculums of kind of having that accessible, because it is a safe way to explore storytellings, to exercise empathy, and to work as a team. You know, it's always more fun when you can utilize creative problem solving. And as an actor, it's that thing where you can go to some really dark places and explore dark genres, but it is safe. And we do that in order to tell complex stories that are reflective of the world around us. You know, particularly Fallout is a game that is just dripping with philosophy, and a definite criticism of jingoism and complacency that led to an apocalypse, and how people are trying to rebuild. And it's great because in a lot of the Fallout lore, there is definite parallels to the kind of philosophical splits and divides within people who are all trying to survive, just as we are in the modern world. You know, you get some people who are like Mr. House. It's like, you know, fuck you, I've got mine.
Right.
And if I get mine, you get yours.
Right. So I'll take care of you, but you got to take care of me.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people who totally subscribe to that belief, you know, of no, we have to have capitalism, or we have to have this because it does create a system and a routine that we are familiar with. And then you have, you know, the Brotherhood of Steel who are trying to forge ahead. But then, you know, when does religious extremism kind of or that ideology becomes its own religion, you know? Exactly.
Like all of these things.
It's so complex. And I think using Fallout as a storytelling tool, but also as a philosophical tool, is really, really valuable. Because there is never a sense in Fallout, particularly like in the really kind of morally complex games like New Vegas, there is never a sense of like, yeah, I did that right. Woo! It's always every decision is full of doubt, and I don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe there is no right thing. maybe it is always trying to figure out the lesser evil, but even still, I will probably never know. So there's that thing, and I think that is really cool to explore as a performer, but also just as a person in general.
Yeah, no, I think it's
occasionally.
And we talk about it on the show all the time. I mean, this is the perfect topic for the show, and to kind of wrap everything up. But like, as a human being, we should be having those conversations, and video games make us have these thoughts and have these questions and have these conversations with each other. And they're the kinds of things we should be asking ourselves and talking with each other about regularly for our entire lives, because they're important questions and there are no easy answers. And we should be struggling with these questions as a community, as a society, until the ends of our days. Because there are no easy answers. And if we aren't struggling with those questions, then the people who are going to take advantage of the people who aren't. And so the more we're all having these conversations together, the more we're likely to get to a better place. And if we're not, we're going to be taken advantage of. And that's just that's how that story works out.
Yeah. So for the Fallout TTRPG, I do think it veers on the side of fun in terms of, isn't this post-apocalypse fun? And don't we love this story and this
it's a game
setting? And don't we want to live in here with our friends? And it's kind of like, no, it should be punishing. It's not punishing, but it's not fun. Living in Fallout is not fun. It's kind of like, oh, I want to live in a cyberpunk world. It's like, psych, we're already doing it and it's bad, remember? That's what the game was trying to tell you. Right. Cyberpunk 2020 was a warning and we did not heed it. And now we're living in a stupid Bitcoin world where space capitalists have it lording all over us.
Where Amazon's opening a giant shipping center next to the slums in Mexico. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I do think it can be used as a tool to help tell those much more complex stories. And if you pick up the Fallout TTRPG by Modifius Entertainment, who have been very lovely, and I think I'm giving a fair critique. It is really fun to play. But maybe
it is a game. It is a game.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But maybe that is a bit, it sounds like a weak criticism. It's too fun. But
it's too fun.
Consider that when you're kind of going in. And I think for everyone listening to this, would be an easy sell because everyone's already a big fan of Fallout, whereas I don't know that I would recommend it to someone who is a bit iffy on the lore and a bit of a Fallout dummy, like yours truly.
Right. Well, it would make sense that if you're going to have someone GM the game, that they would have to have some foundation and knowledge in Fallout. You have to have a basic understanding of the world. Now, the party members, maybe not necessarily. That might be okay. Especially if they're playing like a vault dweller who just woke up.
Yes, yeah.
And entered the world and was like, what are all these mutants and robots doing here? This I've never seen this before. Like, that could be really interesting to bring somebody into that world who's never seen it and have them experiencing everything for the first time. Because every single one of us had to play our first Fallout game at some point, and we all went through that experience, and that experience is amazing. Yeah.
The game very much drops you in it too, for the first Fallout. It's kind of like, okay, go get some water, please. Yeah.
What is this world? I don't know what's going on out here. Okay.
Don't let the door hit you on your way out.
Yeah. Good luck.
Our resident Vampire the Masquerade expert, Chris, for season 2 of Lorecast, where we play Vampire the Masquerade, did a very similar thing. Used the fact that as newly embraced kindred, newly embraced vampires, you have no idea what is happening. And you have no idea about the complex lore and social etiquette that the kindred society has. And so you have to kind of learn as you go. And so as a result, when we were learning, he gave us a very highly edited version of the book. He said, only read these things, only these things. And the rest we were just stumbling into and experiencing firsthand.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point that you make, Tom, of everyone in Fallout has to experience the world that is totally different from what they once knew. You know, there was Americana, everything is safe. Now there is nothing but survival.
Right.
And how you do that as a GM and as a storyteller can be really, really interesting and fun to play with for your players, and add something new to the experience, I would say.
Yeah. That could be a really fun way to bring people into it. So I would recommend, if you're somebody who likes tabletop games and you have people who aren't into Fallout and you are into Fallout, I wouldn't shy away from getting a hold of this and then bringing people into it as a way to introduce them into Fallout, because you could totally set up a campaign that gets them into the world. And, you know, like, what's a Pip-Boy? What is, you know, what's a synth? What is a super mutant? Like, they don't know yet, but they could find out. You know, what's a stim pack? What is, you know, what's going on in the puzzle? Like, what are these mutants? What's possible in this world? Well, they don't even know yet, but you do, and that could be a really exciting campaign because they have no idea what's possible.
My one last thing and one last comment on it is, if you're doing that, I would probably lean into the lore that you know already. The game does something I don't quite like, where it sets it in our times, kind of. So instead of the bombs falling in the 50s?
The bombs drop in 2076, 2077.
Is that in the games also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, whack.
2076. The numbers always get mixed up with me because of Cyberpunk.
Yeah. I mean, I always picture Fallout just from the two games as
2077. It's October 23rd, 2077.
Yeah, this very Americana. And I think it is definitely very valuable to play into those traits and archetypes of an America that was very Jangoistic and patriotic, and didn't really know much about the outside world. And there was this constant underlying fear of nuclear war.
Right.
However, there was the facsimile of society that was so upheld. You know, there's the nuclear family, of, you know, a heteronormative couple, 2 kids and a dog, a white picket fence. Right. And to then suddenly go, none of that was trustworthy. All of it was at the machinations of governments and military that kept that image for a specific sense of complacency that it instilled in people.
Right. I
think going that for me really tells you about the tonal whiplash of Fallout. So I would steer more into that. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think trying to set it in things are a lot more complex now. We know this, you know, they always have been, but we live in a much more nebulous time. And so I think if the bombs dropped now or in 2077 as they do, or 2088, I can't remember.
2077. The thing with the Fallout world is that culture stops developing. That's why the music stays the same. It's like society stagnates due to some of the events in the Fallout world. So you end up with this 1950s, 1960s culture that just kind of runs on indefinitely, and we don't get society developing like ours does. It just stagnates, and then it just stays the same, which is a really interesting concept. So, I would lean into that kind of thing, because I think it does. We don't need to set it in our times for the metaphors and parallels to our world to work. Mm-hmm. You know, I think similar to how Cyberpunk 2020 was a comment on 80s Reagan America, we can use Fallout to kind of explore the trappings of, Jangoism and military and government machinations. That's just my thing. Yeah, that's what I do. But obviously, that's the point of a TTRPG. You can go and do whatever you want. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. I know you've got to run. is there anything you'd like to share about ways people can get a hold of you or what they should check out before you head out?
So you can find me at Baby Beard Media. We are on all the socials. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. But more importantly, make sure that you subscribe to Rolecast. That's ROLE to cast. If you have lots of different kind of TTRPGs that you would like to play or you've always thought about playing, we do a different game each season. So you can really get the sense of the genre, the variety. We're all professional actors. And so we make sure it's really slick and really compelling, like a season of television would be. So make sure you download Roll to Cast, subscribe to that. If you really like us, head over to our Patreon. That's Baby Beard Media Patreon. And yeah, you can also find me individually on Twitter at LNKGraham1. But you'll just find a lot of weird stuff on there. So I would steer more towards what we do with Baby Beard Media. A lot of long Furbies, a lot of my 2 a.m. Pacific Rim thoughts.
Rim thoughts. Awesome.
A lot of me tweeting at Guillermo del Toro.
Nice.
That I love him.
Nice. Yeah, and their show is on the Robots Radio Network, so you can always go to robotsradio.net, find the link for them on there if you can't remember specifically, and just follow the links if you need to. So they're on the network. They're an awesome group. I think you guys will love their stuff. So if you're just getting into role-playing games and you want to listen to somebody play a session to get a sense of what it might be like, that's a wonderful way to do it as well. Some people just have a hard time imagining, like, what would it be like to play a role-playing session, a tabletop game? What is that like? Is it like a video game? How is it different? Go listen to them play. You'll get a sense of what it's like to play a role-playing game on a table with other people. What does that even feel like? What does it sound like? It's a good way to start. So yeah, go check it out. You guys know how to find my stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at robots_radio for my specific stuff, robotsradio.net, of course. And then definitely go check out the shirts that I have up on the Patreon. I'd love for you guys to you can see them in more detail. There's a post. If you scroll down on the Patreon a little bit, you can see the first 4 designs are up. And I'd love to get some feedback on those designs specifically, and even some thoughts on some of the future designs that you guys would like. I'm trying to get some stuff up there that I think you guys are going to absolutely love. And any other thoughts, like if you guys want some mugs or some other things on there, I want to put some stuff on there that you guys are going to absolutely love. I'd love to get some more of you guys on the Patreon as well. I want to put stuff up there that you guys are just going to, eat up. And heck, I mean, it'd be really awesome once this whole COVID thing blows over, for us all to go to like a Bethesda convention and all wear our t-shirts together or something. Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be so awesome.
I'd love that. Can I come?
Yeah, of course you can come. That would be great. Yeah. Actually, what would be really, really cool is to have a Robots Con in Florida. Wouldn't that be awesome? And then we could all go to
Disneyland.
Yeah, we could go to Disney, or like we could rent out like a hotel on the beach in Florida. And then we could all just have like an extended weekend on the beach, and we could have hanging out. If we
want that to happen,
that would be amazing.
Get your vaccines.
Yeah, get your vaccines.
Make sure that you wear your masks.
Wear your mask. Get your vaccines.
And I'll see you in Florida.
Let's kick this thing's butt. And then maybe, who knows, maybe a year, 2 years from now, we can have RobotCon over here in Florida. We can get a bunch of the hosts from the different shows to all come out. That would be freaking amazing. We have a big extended weekend. We could all do live podcasts together. We can hang out with a bunch of everybody. That would be so cool.
Play games together.
We could all play games. We could have tabletop game sessions going. We could bring like laptops and consoles, and we could all have like internet set up so we all play games together. We could go to the beach together. We could do so many cool things. That would be so awesome.
This is too amazing.
It would be. We could have shirts and stuff. I mean, it would be great. All right. Well, thank you again Ellen. Thank you again for joining me. It would be awesome. And heck, I live close enough to the beach that we could set it all up. It would be so cool. All right. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you for checking out the show. We'll be back again next week with a regular episode, and I'll see you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
To plug into everything else we're doing, check out robotsradio.net. Also, look up the Robots Radio YouTube for videos about Fallout and other things. And check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/robotsradio.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.